So during this week, we've seen and heard some great information on digital solutions and the outlook of the digital future of the industry. To help give us more insight on where this is going, we've assembled a team of experts to help give us some clarity and guidance. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. So let's start with some introductions and some bios to get to know them. Scott, let's start with you.
Ben, thank you. Glad to be here and look forward to sharing with you on this day. Again, my name's Scott Cruikshank. I'm Digital Solutions Manager for Stiles Machinery, and I have a long time of experience back from the early 80s in the industry, from manufacturing, distributor sales, company startups, to machinery sales. Worked with large companies, small companies, and everybody in between, and look forward to working with you now on understanding digital solutions better.
Well, thank you, Scott. We know you're a busy man these days and appreciate the time. Alan, who are you?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Ben. My name's Alan Huffman. I'm currently software product manager and senior software consultant. As Scott, I've been at Stiles for over 30 years and worked in software this whole time. So I've been in integration, been in training, been in support, been in sales. So I've traveled throughout North America, been in many, many shops around the world, but primarily in North America. So I've got a lot of experience here, and I've been working in special projects for the last couple of years also.
All right, Alan. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And Martin, give us some history here.
Thank you, Ben. So my name is Martin Kincher. I'm a senior consultant for Schuler Consulting. We are part of the Homark Group and the Stiles family here. And I'm glad that I can be on this panel today. My experience in the past, I've been a consultant with Schuler Consulting since 2012. I've been doing a lot of projects in Europe back then, and since 2017 projects in the US, and a total of, I would say, more than 100 projects of customers, all in the woodworking industry. And yeah, it's been quite the journey so far, and good experiences. And every customer you go to, you learn something new.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? So thank you so much, Martin. We know you guys have a ton of expertise, so we really appreciate you being here to share that with us and making us all a little bit smarter. So and last, I am Ben Williams. I'm acting as moderator. I'm also a product specialist for Stiles Machinery, and I'll be weighing in a little bit on the machine efficiency side of things. So let's go ahead and dive in. We've got one of our first questions that we have people dying to have us answer here. So we all know going digital is about unlocking growth and fully leveraging the resources that we have. That's part of that process. And it sounds great for larger companies with money and the time to spare. However, we found that primarily the woodworking industry is made up of small to average sized businesses. So why should they care? And does the size of their organization even matter? So we'll start with Alan. Alan, can you give us some more insight on what you think that means and what that answer is?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, in my opinion, the size of a company really doesn't matter when it comes to digital solutions. In today's environment, we have many different solutions for all size companies, from cloud-based solutions to traditional software solutions, to fully automatic robotic systems. So the simple answer is it doesn't matter the size, whether you're a one-man shop or 500 people shop. We've got plenty of examples of even fully automated shops with only about 10 people involved. So we can cross the gamut in the digital world today.
Okay. And what about as far as company size goes, and we hear too a lot about connected machines versus connected factories. Martin, do you have any insight for us on what that means and how that process works?
Yeah, sure. So we're seeing more and more, I would say, the big furniture companies, especially the big office furniture companies in the US, they're running connected lines. So a fully automated line, maybe from a panel storage system towards a cutting, edge bending solution, maybe with some sorting and drilling. That would be your typical office furniture producer, for example. Kitchen industry, we see that the line is a little bit less connected, maybe still. And then also we are seeing now that for smaller companies, there are very nice scalable solutions as well, where we have connected cells, where a robot or AGVs kind of like interconnect cells. And I think this for me is probably going to be the future.
Okay. And Scott, do you have some insight for us as well?
Well, when I think about size of companies and connected machines versus connected factories, traditionally, and for the many years, we've been sending information to machines. We've created programs and sent them to saws, optimization programs. We've sent information, nested-based information to CNC machines. We've sent programs to nested-based style machines. And so to me, that was a connected machine. But a connected factory means that machine now is capable, and we're starting to send data back from the machine to the office or the machine to the cloud, and allows us to do more with the data. You know, we hear the term big data in Internet of Things and Industry 4.0 and smart factories. And this is the area I think that we're starting to see more emphasis, and especially in the wood industry today, on when I say or when we hear the term connected factory. Martin, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that is definitely a good argument. We see more and more that we have interfaces and feedback from the factory back from the actual production floor. So the production floor is communicating more with the office. It's not a one way anymore where data gets sent to the production, like your CNC files or your production documents, prints of that. But at the same time, the communication is there going back from the production floor up to the office. Like what kind of parts have we produced? How much edge band have we used today, for example? Do we need additional material? Do we have enough stock available on the shop floor? How much time did it even take us for a job to be produced, so that afterwards I can also do some post calculation and revise maybe also my my cost calculation, my quote process basically, and use that information. How available were my machines? How much, what was my efficiency for the processes? Maybe even also on a personal level, how efficient were certain people compared against other people? Are they working in the right areas? Where are we losing like grip? Where are we losing that grip to bring the power onto the street to get traction on the factory really?
And I think a lot of this stuff, there's certain buzzwords out there, new and processes and technology and things like that. But I think a lot of this revolves around business intelligence to an extent. And I mean, it's not just in the office, but it's on the production floor as well. And Martin, you mentioned about, and Scott, data. You know, there are solutions out there now to measure machine efficiencies and things like that. So you can more easily identify bottlenecks on the production floor too. So, and that's feedback, right? That's information that's, again, not only just going out to the production floor, but also coming back into the office to give people that visibility. Scott, you have some comments?
So Martin's explanation was great, and your point on the data. How do people find time to use the data? How do they know what to do with it? How, you know, again, data's been out there. How do we go down that journey? Alan, what are you saying? You've got a lot of experience here.
So part of what we've been working with and what I've been working with is our MES solution, and that's a manufacturing execution system. And with that type of a system, we collect the data from the floor, from the machines, from different areas within the plant. And then this allows us to then analyze the information and give dashboards out for people. If you've been through shops or you've even through Style Showroom, right? Or even in our offices, we have dashboards that tell us about how many parts we've shipped, about the calls that are coming in and relevant information that about the company. The same thing we can do within your production manufacturing facility. By collecting that information, we know everything about the parts, about the product, about the jobs, where they're at within the completion of that. And also if you're behind or if a machine goes down, you can notify individuals for repair. So there's just unlimited amount of information once you have or collected data that you can use it for.
Yeah, and Alan, that's one thing we can kind of move on to. Another topic here is most companies are becoming more digital today, and part of that means they're are designing solutions. They've got accounting solutions. They keep track of their time, their payroll. There's just some things that come to mind, and those are long-standing, right? They're more easily defined areas of running a business. We got to know how much we're paying people, right? So one of those things. But when it comes to that shop floor, it seems that there are not as many total solutions for that type of process or application. So what are the technologies you see on the shop floor? And Martin and Alan, Alan, you mentioned MES briefly. Can you give us more insight on that type of emerging technology?
Talking about MES, MES again is a new in our industry. MES systems have been around manufacturing for many years, but in the woodworking industry, it seems to become more popular as companies are finding the need to automate and the need to collect information and to lower their overall cost. And what is MES? Again, as I mentioned to you, that's a manufacturing execution system. And basically, that's the glue between your office software that creates your bill of material like an ERP system or a design package and the floor itself. So there's some of the key features of an MES are the automated batching of jobs, so we can create the correct flow of parts through the factory. Being able to, again, we mentioned collecting the data and feeding it back into the office so we can compare what we are supposed to be doing and what we're actually doing, helping you to better plan and make intelligent decisions on the factory floor as you go through. So that's part of from the MES perspective.
Okay, Martin, do you have anything extra that we can add to that, help broaden that context a little bit more, or even narrow it?
So yeah, I'm seeing more and more requests from our customer side that they are starting to look into MES software actually. And the customers of ours who don't know what an MES is or what it does for them, even they ask the exact questions, which then lead us towards like, okay, actually you are looking into an MES system. You want to gain that production transparency here. And those are the typical questions. You want to keep track of your parts, your losing parts and so on. And they ask about this. And then we look at, okay, what are the functionalities you really want to have in the future? What are the functionalities which you should have in the future? So from my side, from where I typically come in at a customer as a consultant, we look at, okay, how can we make you guys better? How can we help you to become better, to become more efficient with what you're doing? So then we look at, okay, how is the shop floor even connected to your office? And a lot of times we see that there's no feedback, for example. Okay, there's no transparency. There's no sequence of how the next jobs should be processed on the machines and so on. And so you look a lot at those potentials here to improve your shop floor, and then that a lot of times leads us to typical MES functionalities. And I always like to talk about an MES functionality versus a full-blown MES software. Because in the beginning, you have to think about what functionalities do you want to achieve. And then afterwards, you look at, okay, how do I fill that gap with existing software? Maybe they already have some software in place they can do something with. We came from the machine feedback side just a couple of minutes ago. So we also have smaller shop floor solutions for machine feedback and getting better understanding of that. So there's a lot of options how you actually afterwards fill the gaps. But first you have to start thinking about functionalities. And that leads us nowadays in a little accelerated, but maybe 85% of my projects towards somehow MES.
Sure. Now, Scott, you got some feedback for us as well.
One of the things, first of all, MES is manufacturing execution software, right? It helps you be more efficient on the factory floor. But the other thing is you've heard both Martin and Alan talk about is it provides that data. And one of the things we're also seeing as the labor market tightens, as people are moving more towards automation, this type of solution is more critical because when you start automating, you have to have better information, more complete information, better data up front. And that's a point that a lot of people, when they start the automation path, well, they might intrinsically understand it. While they might know that, they don't know the effort it takes to collect that data, to understand that data, to be able to make that automation happen. And I think that's also one of the reasons that Martins and Alan are active in this marketplace, is because more and more automation is happening today. And I think that automation also helps drive that manufacturing execution solution or software.
And that kind of leads us to two more points here, and we'll kind of split them into two different things. The first one is we've heard a lot about what digital is and why throughout this discussion so far, the whys, right? And what's emerging in technology so far. So with all the experience between all three of you guys, can you help our customers or help our audience understand the how to execute on some of these things? So give us a little bit of insight into that, and maybe including some of the issues, right, that folks are seeing or might make ping their brain to say, okay, this is an area where I should change, maybe where they didn't see it before, but they do now. This is an area where I need to change. Here's how I can start executing on that. Scott, or do you have any feedback for us there, or Martin as well?
I'll be glad to start out on that topic. That's a great question. First of all, it's a very broad question, so I'll try to take parts of it. The first thing, we all recognize, and we admitted earlier, that most companies are digital today. They have design softwares, accounting softwares along the way, and so there's expectations. But most of those areas are easy to define. They're easy to create a solution for because it does define task. When you start talking about the complexity of a manufacturing floor, or complexity of a customer interaction, and how you tie those things together with a digital solution, again, a digital solution is just using technology, using data storage, number crunching, things like that to solve a problem. It's harder to define and understand exactly what the solution is going to do. And then you hear that it's software, right? It can do anything. That's what a lot of people feel. It's just software. It can do anything. But software is just a tool. And that tool is defined and created to do specific things. And we all feel, and I look at some of the apps on my phone, I feel it should do it differently, right? And so I'm frustrated. Well, an app didn't cost me anything. I just delete it and find another app, right? But when you've invested time and effort and money into a project, into a software, and then you only get part of that investment back, or you don't feel like you're getting the investment back, it's frustrating. But on the other hand, part of that is because I see companies that they know where they want to go, and it's just like installing a new machine, right? Somebody decides to buy a machine, the person they put in front of it doesn't have a clear set of understanding of how the machine works, what they're expecting out of it, and it never produces the output they expect. Same thing with a digital solution or software, right? The companies have a tendency to not invest the time and energy to bring everybody into the same pathway and understanding and know what the software does as opposed to what they thought it could do. And there's two different things there quite often. Boy, that was tough.
Alan, you have some feedback for us too.
Yep. Well, I mean, just reiterating what Scott said earlier, I mean, data is critical. The accurate data is critical. And to me, what I find, and we've all been, Scott, you've been in many shops as well as you, Martin, that customers will have a software solution that was really never intended to do what they're trying to do with it. So it's important as you're investigating and you're looking at different solutions out there to make sure that they are designed for our market and for the application that you're looking for. Because again, some software companies will try to sell you a solution that's one size fits all, that does everything. And in my experience, there is no single solution that does everything for anybody, right? So making sure that the investment that you make in software or digital solutions, that piece is flexible, that it can interface to and from other systems easily, that the data is transferable, the connectivity to the machinery, back to the office, and and not just locked in to one solution is key.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about there too is maybe some of those pitfalls that we run into, or that we've all seen. You three for sure, right? Because you've got some history and experience there. But avoiding those pitfalls, those things that people get trapped in, consistently over and over again. And I think you've touched on a lot of those things. So I think that's some good feedback for us there. Now, kind of going, I made a point earlier to say we got two questions. It kind of goes in two different directions. Oh, before we move on, Martin, you had some feedback for us.
Yeah, I was still waiting for my chance to give.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blow by. Sorry, buddy.
Just politely waiting. So when it comes to the why and how, I just want to share something about the how. I believe, and I read about it the other day, that how important it becomes that the system should be flexible and adaptive. And once you start with a software, I think it's always good to come from like the bigger picture. So you want to start, you want to think, start small, and then scale quickly. And I think those 3 points really emphasize where your criteria for software selection. You want to start small, but already have the big picture in mind. So a lot of times when we come in, we look at this, Ellen and Scott, we all do this when we're at our customers. We look at the current situation, what software they have in place, where the gaps are, and what the intention is, and what the functionalities are, what they want to do. And then from there, you can easily develop a roadmap, okay, where you want to be in the future. What is your optimum state? And you want to look at that first. Okay, and now that you know this is my end goal, this is where I want to be in a couple of years, or next year even, depending on your inner motivation and your push, I guess. But now that you have your goals in mind, you can start breaking it down into steps. And every time now you get offered a new functionality of a software, you know if this will help you towards your goals or if this will not help goals. And I've seen this a lot of times at my customers, that they are quick to pull the trigger on buying new software, but they're also as quick to kind of like unplug that software again, and then it goes into a drawer. And you see really that there is not the whole intention, the whole big picture is not always there from the beginning. So we see that there's jigsaw puzzles of different modules, which in the end don't really work together, and they only give you half the functionality what you achieve. So we always want to look at the roadmap. Okay, where do we want to be in a couple of years? We look at this from a production planning from our side, for the shop floor as well. How can this develop in a couple of years? But the software for me is exactly the same. You want to look at it and you want to have the space in order to put in future your IntelliStore and your robotic saw, for example. But you also want to have that considered in your data flow as well, that in a couple of years you need the data for this automatic saw. And now, not at the moment you buy that machine, you think about it, you need to start thinking about this right now. Like, how can this be part of my solution in a couple of years, and how can I get there? And this is really what I see critical.
And Scott, what say you?
Well, Martin brought up a great point. And that point is you need to start thinking ahead of time. But what I also see is that we haven't done as industry educators, that's a lot of what we do, haven't helped customers understand. So they don't even know the questions to ask, right? So it's easy for us as the machinery guy as a machinery company to say this machine will solve these issues. And I think as a company and as a people, we have to be more effective at helping our customers understand along that roadmap, along that pathway. They need to start thinking about this ahead of time. And I think that's one of those things that we should do a better job at. And I think that's something that Martin and his group does a great job at, is helping customers look ahead and help them understand what's going to be needed at the next step, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and Martin, I think, teed us up really nicely for the next question or segment, if you will, is that ROI, right? The return on investment. So that's the business owner wants to know, what am I getting in return? So when a business owner makes an investment, they want to realize either some sort of cost savings, generate additional production. And sometimes we hear that a solution is not providing that ROI that they expected. So what should we look for in a digital investment? Scott, can you kind of help us understand that?
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of a sidestep to the answer first. You always want to have the ROI, but to factor in the things, your costs first, right? What's my true cost for the software? Is it just the purchase and the training up front? There's hardware involved, there's servers that might need to be upgraded. So all that's easy to clarify and to put a number on. But I think the hard part to put the number on is the amount of time that it's going to take for that piece of software to be integrated into your system. And I think as the experience that we have, that's the one area that people have a unrealistic expectation of. The amount of training, the amount of emotional changeover, right? People don't like to make change. So if they've been comfortable doing something a certain way and you buy a piece of digital solution to modify that, to make that pathway easier, and it works differently, boy, that's really difficult. And those are the areas that we see that customers and companies don't factor in to their return on investment. So whatever that, and so every company will be different, right? Some companies, they're aggressive, they're easy to make changes, things like that. That emotional time is going to be a lot less return on, or quicker, faster return on the investment. Some of them, it's going to be much harder, longer pathway. And so that return on investment will be different. And then the other thing I would suggest is that keep the end goal in mind, right? I promise you, in the early days, optimization, man, it was easy. Yeah, you could save 15% of your material, easy. I use $1 million worth of material a year, 15% of that, boy, that's an easy number to calculate. But when you start talking about manufacturing execution and some of those other things, how do you track and calculate the payback for rework management going faster and smoother, or having the right information, and whoever calculated what the cost of their paper was for all the printouts they had to do to send to the shop floor that you don't have to do today, and the time necessary to do that. Very few people think about those things in the return on investment.
Yeah, and I think that's actually quite a profound piece of feedback. Is that it generally speaking takes longer than you would expect. Martin, do you have some feedback for us?
Yeah. So I mean, the goals are always there. We want to lower the cost. We want to work towards an ROI. And we are achieving that by material efficiency, for example. We might be reducing the effort to engineer a job, which helps us the time it takes to configure a job, which is not the same as engineering. That's a discussion we have a lot of times. You don't have to engineer every job. You just have to configure it, maybe, if you're building kitchen, for example, making it a lot easier. And now on the shop floor, there's also time savings we can see a lot of times. And I mean, the one where I see all the time where we can save time is really sorting and kitting. That is your typical stepping stone, which leads you towards an MES system, for example, because you want to become more efficient with how you're batching in the beginning for your cutting in order to get those material efficiency. You have to separate those parts again and kind of like find your cabinet again and make it a kit. And that is really what I think is driving the ROI of these projects. A lot of times I've seen a customer recently, an example, they were working in 3 shifts, the whole production, because they were sorting after each machining step. They were sorting the parts for the next step. And there was a lot of sorting going on, documents and so on, a little bit this uncaptured cost. But and then still in the kitting area at the end, I think we had 8 people working in that area. Not software, no software support at all for the people. So they really had to look at the label of how to sort the parts and so on. And that even every step already had sorting. So you add up those sorting steps along the line and you come to an incredible number in the end. And we introduced a new system, a software supported system for batching in the beginning. We got rid of all the sorting steps after each machine. And at the end, we have a software supported system where we scan parts, and it helps us with this production assist, for example, for sorting or assembly, what HOMAG is offering nowadays as well. So it went a little bit that direction, but that can also be an MES solution. And this helped us to reduce a whole shift on the production. And now you're looking at real cost. That was a groundbreaking news for their management. I mean, they loved us afterwards for that solution. and we some clever ways on how we scan parts and so on, and how it would help us assign to a slot. And I think in the end we need 2 people sorting on 2 shifts, so we were able to reduce effort drastically, and that helps towards the ROI. But, and this is the but, I don't think it all has to be working towards an ROI. I mean, an ROI is a good hard number, but we should also look at the soft factors a little bit. If we are, we have to have a future-proof system, in my opinion, established. So processes, how it's done, and a lot of times without software, people are just winging it, more or less, how the processes roll, and you need higher qualified personnel, which is not going to be available, and it's getting less and less by the day, basically, that we have those high skilled people. I had another customer, they had the highest skilled person at the cutting saw, for example, because it was so difficult to think of all the production routes. Oh yeah, that side panel has to go to this one edge bender, and afterwards to the vertical drilling machine, to then the hardware insertion and so on. So he was the most skilled person in the production because he had to de-stack according to the production routes. And it would take them more than a year to train him in order to be able to do that. And that is just not sustainable, in my opinion. Once you're looking more at a software support here, then okay, obviously we're saving somehow here on the qualification profile of that person, maybe, but it's not necessarily an ROI we're achieving by a de-stacking solution, for example, in that case. But we're making the whole production, the whole factory, we're making it more future-proof. Because in the future, without those highly skilled people, you can't wing it anymore.
True. Now, Alan, you've got some information for us too, it looks like.
Yep. I just want to kind of top 2 things that one Scott said and follow up a little bit on Martin. Scott, your point about the companies not considering the investment of time that it takes to integrate software. I mean, we've seen this time and time again that you may have a solution in place. It may not be the right solution, and you've identified, or we've helped you identify, that there may be a better solution. And you get this expectation that, okay, I just purchased the software, now I'm going to install it, and 1 week later it's up and running. So you have to dedicate the necessary resources to implement any type of solution, especially if you're going to be replacing an existing solution. The person in charge of implementing the new piece has to have the time dedicated. He can't be running 100% what he was doing before and all of a sudden install and integrate a totally new solution at the same time, right? So you have to have the dedicated resources. I think that was a critical point, and that's something that should be considered by all of the companies as they talk about an ROI on a software solution. And lastly, one of the things Martin brings up in automation is the labeling aspect of it, and what we call a smart part, or the smart labeling. Today, and as Martin talked about, it's getting more and more difficult to find, skilled labor in this workforce. So being able to have, if not even a totally automated solution where a machine, part goes in and it comes out a finished cabinet, but being able to give the operators on the shop floor the right information at the right time. And we do that a lot by labeling. Labeling is a critical component. Earlier in the week, I did a segment on part labeling only, so you can watch that also. But labeling is critical, and again, that helps to minimize the amount of expertise required. And as you move employees around, all they need to do is read the label to understand what to do with their components.
Thanks, Alan. Scott?
Alan, I really like your first of all, your commercial on going back and watching your segment on labeling. That was awesome. I appreciate you fitting that in. But when I was watching that, it made me think about something that Ben shared with me one time. And Ben shared with me a diagram of Uber. So Uber's easy, right? You're on your cell phone, you put in where you're at, you put in where you want to go, and a driver comes and gets you. It's easy, right? But when you take a look at the diagram of all the things that are going on in the background, it's amazing that that easy thing works. Well, Alan talks about label printing, and we've been label printing since 1987. So it's easy to us today. But when you think about all the stuff that you need to make a label come out, you have to have a design. You have to have the customer information. Where does that come from? You got to have a machine that can talk to the label printer. You got to have the label printer. You got to have a certain type of label in the paper. You got to have the information, the format of the label, and you have to have the software for the printer driver that drives that. And when you start looking at all those things, that easy label, right, is kind of like that same Uber app. There's a lot of stuff that has to go on in the background for that to ever happen, but we make it look easy. And so again, that complexity of what we do is also part of the simplicity of what we do. And I don't think most customers understand. Well, Alan, how many times have we asked a customer, okay, we've got your labeling set up now. What do you want on your label? You tell me.
Yeah.
Right?
What's the default? Yeah.
Yeah.
Put the size on there.
Yeah, really. Want the size? Yeah. So I think that again, going back to what we've said many times, customers have this vision of what they want it to be. They haven't created, as Martin pointed out, that roadmap of how to get there and what the steps are necessary along that way.
Very good. Well, thank you, gentlemen. That brings us into another topic here. I think Martin, Scott, and Alan, I think in one form or another, all three of you guys touched on this, and that's finding the qualified people, or if you can't find the qualified people, what are your options? So when we're able to have our live manufacturing events, the majority of our attendees voiced that they need more qualified people. And now we're talking about digital solutions. So how do they hire and train for this? So Martin, can you give us some more insight in what you think there?
I think it's a decisive factor for a company's success to start building a digital team already up right now. Because if you don't have a digital team, it will be hard for you to attract further talent in the future, digital talent, basically. And so it's kind of like this situation. You have to get started with it in order to be competitive on a labor market in the future. And in my opinion, you also have to get started with this in order to be competitive in any future, basically, in order to start working on all those topics. And you need the capacities, as Alan pointed out, and Scott as well, to do those projects. It's not all plug and play with those projects, but as soon as you have a digital person or a digital mindset even in your company, right, it starts becoming easier. But you have to ease into it. You have to start making the first steps, or if not, by long you will be behind. And then it's even harder for you to find the right people, because nobody wants to work in that dusty old shop with paper documents anymore. But if they see a cool dashboard on the ceiling and they're working with tablets and there's LED lights where I have to put the part, I mean, then I might work there. Yeah, sure. That looks interesting for me. And this is, I think, will be also a decisive factor in the future So we're looking also here at attracting new and digital talent, basically, towards our customers in the future.
Well, so it sounds like a lot of that just has to do with it would benefit these companies to be more aggressive pursuing more digital solutions because they become more attractive. And it kind of makes you think not only to prospective employees, but when their customers come to them and say, wow, you guys, really have this system figured out. Like you get KPI dashboards and, we know where our order is. And, when I order the pizza from Domino's, I can track my pizza. Whoever knew that would be a thing, right? Alan, you've got some insight for us.
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, I've got a son who's getting ready to turn 20 this month. He's in college right now, and he's trying to find out what he wants to do for a living. And, I've asked him the question, hey, how about going to work in a woodworking shop? And, the result of that is, no, I don't think so. Because it's not exciting. I mean, and I think as we've seen throughout, and we've had several guest speakers at some of our other seminars, they talk the same thing. Today's college people, right? I mean, they're looking at either high automation in engineering or business management. And the idea of a skilled craftsman anymore coming out of college is going to be very difficult to find. So from what we're working with, Martin and I, on a lot of the projects and is in the automation, we get into robotics, we get into AGVs, and all of this is run by software. And as Martin touched on, when you walk into a facility that has dashboards and LED lights and robotic machines running, I mean, that is something interested. And I did, in speaking about my son, I had the opportunity to walk him through one of our big customers in Colorado that is more automated. And after that visit, his mindset was completely different from my original conversation about what would you be interested in working in that environment. So it is important to look forward to the future and the new employees that are going to be available to hire.
And I think that it takes on a different paradigm when you think of, yes, we have external customers that we're trying to bring in, right? We're trying to attract customers so we can increase our business. But if we start thinking about hiring people, employees as internal customers, then that kind of takes on a different context. Scott, you've got some info for us.
I think that one of the things we haven't touched on, that this digital aspect of it, what it really means is that we're defining along the way what the rules of the road are. What do I do at this station? What do I do here? What do I do there? That has to be known ahead of time. Martin talked about having a saw guy having to create that path, right, for those parts and know how to sort them. That can be done digitally today, pretty simple. You set up some rules, those paths are created, we can put that on the label, and that path is then defined. And it doesn't take that tribal knowledge, that experience to understand. So when I started out many years ago, we would have a hand sketch, right? Just a basic sketch of a kitchen, and we could interpret that and make something come out. Well, handing a hand sketch to somebody today and getting what you interpret out of it, you're going to get 50 different interpretations. And so having that consistency of understanding, of knowledge, that the software that Digital Solutions provide at each station, I think is, as Martin pointed out, critical to be able to move forward in today's industry with today's workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's taking the element of uncertainty out of the equation, which people have a difficult time with anyway, is uncertainty. So it's helping out with that. Martin.
Yeah, it also makes it easier, actually. As Scott said, we don't need that skilled person on the shop floor. Maybe in some future that will be also an automatic process, but we need somehow that engineer in the office. Somebody who's interested and excited about automation, for example, and data. And basically, I would say a young digital talent, right? Somebody who helps get this information on the label. But that is actually easier to find that person than to find the master craftsman for my shop. So it's a transformation. Maybe we don't need the exact number in the office. We might be able in some future to reduce our production manpower by, I don't know, 20%, right? But that also means that you need 10% more digital capabilities, basically, right? So it's not that you are saving fully on your shop floor when you're going digital, but you also have to think about staffing your office, and I believe that actually makes it easier to be able to compete in the future once you go that digital step, because Alan's son now will probably start somewhere
Yes.
in the office, right? He will not be
Yes.
a saw operator, but he got excited about being an engineer, maybe in the office, but he didn't get too excited about imagining his future as a saw operator.
I don't know, that new saw with the LED lights on it makes it really look like a lot of fun to do that day in and day out.
Yeah. Well, and Martin, you mentioned something too, the data, right? Having more data available. And now we're seeing, data and emerging technologies with machines where you can measure your effectiveness. And I think that generally people want a sense of significance. They want to know what they do matters, or that they have some sort of impact. So we're able to measure that now and show them, like, listen, you're doing well, and it's kind of helps encourage them to do better. So it's tools for not only attracting good talent, but then how do you grow that and how do you maintain that? I think that having data for that is significant. That's good. Any final thoughts on that?
Just on that topic you talked about, and I've talked to many business owners that have, once they began to display the amount of production that each operator does during a daytime, it becomes automatically a competition in the plant, right? I mean, it's something like, look, I'm over 100% today and we're ahead of schedule, and these guys over here, they're behind schedule. We're better than that, so it without even doing anything, just by displaying the data, it actually increased the productivity, and each operator, it gives them the ability, it's kind of like a competition. So, well,
and that kind of touches too on, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind, right? So if you can see it, you can measure it, you can monitor it, then it's in your head. You say, okay, I can do better here because I can see my results. So that's a really profound thought, Alan. Thank you so much. Well, I think we have officially reached the end, the conclusion here. So a lot of really great information from the team and the voice of experience. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. For all those watching, if you need more information, please feel free to contact those on the panel or your local Stiles sales representative. Again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.